Okay, so I'm going to think this through with y'all if you're watching. So after they assemble their parts, so cutting out the clocks, I went ahead and cut on the dotted lines. I have my hands and my little bitty brad. And I always tell the students, you know, when they're cutting, once you cut, or I'll say, as y'all are cutting, I'm going to come by and give you a tiny brad. Do not touch it until I tell you to. I also gave y'all tacks in the little bags, I think 4 or 5. I put a tack on each table or with each, you know, cluster of kids. The tacks are to poke holes into the paper because the brads aren't very strong. And again, I would just tell them as I put the tack and the brads, I do not want you to touch anything until I tell you. So they cut it out, model, of course, how to do this. Then starting with the white clock, I would ask my students, okay, we're going to cover the very basics of a clock. What number do we start with at the top of a clock? 12. And this is clockwise. I would tell them clockwise. You're moving in the direction that a clock moves, so this is clockwise. 12 becomes 1, and 1 becomes 2, and so on. If you have markers, I would highly suggest letting them use markers. Highlighters would even work, except if it's yellow. I never let my students use yellow for writing. Even a matte pencil or crayon, just something for it to stick out. I also would mention that this is an analog clock. I think before I'd number, I would let them know this is an analog clock. Analog clocks are the ones where we have to use the hands. It doesn't give us the time. The ones that give us the time are digital. So talk about the type of clock. But first we number. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so then I would have my students, I think, pull the other sheet and ask them, okay, when you're at 12, that's the start. So that will be our 0. And we're going to go ahead and put 2 digits because in time it's like money. 2 digits follow the hour. Do y'all know what a clock jumps by when it goes from 12 to 1 in minutes? How many minutes is it from digit to digit? So ask them that. If they don't know, or if some say 5 and some don't answer, go, well, let me see. So let's say that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, y'all are right. So remember, 2 digits, so it's going to be 0, 5. So let's count by 5s, and we're going to label as we go, so please don't get ahead. 0, 5, 10. Remember, don't count faster than we can write. 15, 20, 25, 30. Y'all should be writing as we're saying it. 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and then what? 60. And I'm going to write that under here. And the reason is because in 4th grade, it's a big thing to know, you know, if we're going from the beginning, if we're going clockwise, 5, 10, 15, 20, but if you're going backwards in time, you would start with 60 minutes because a full hour is 60 minutes, 0 to 60, or 60, 55, 50 if you're going backwards. All right, so once we've labeled, I would tell them to get the little hands. And I would write on the board somewhere, or I think I would write on my overhead, it doesn't matter, grab a scrap of paper and ask them, does anyone know how to spell hour? Hopefully someone knows H-O-U-R. Then ask them to spell minute, so you can kind of see if they even have a clue. And ask them which one is the shorter word, which one has less letters. Hour. Hour is the shorthand. Shorter word, shorthand. Longer word, longhand. That's how I've always taught it. So I would have them take a moment and label hour and minute. So give me a moment. I'm going to do that. I would tell them that they are common nouns. We do not capitalize. So see, hour. Now I'm going to label this one minute. And now that we've labeled, we're going to assemble our clocks. So everyone using the tack, and at this point I would get the tack and I would demonstrate. You're going to carefully, you're going to be careful, but basically demonstrate. You'd have to hold this in your hand, of course. And then I use the tack and I poke a hole, and then I would do the same thing with this one. And then I would insert the brad through both. So I can't do that while holding this, so give me a moment. So this is the part where everyone would be using the tack, and I walk around and help if they need it, but the tack should go through pretty easily through the cardstock, and then that allows the brad to go through. But before I let them do any of it, they're supposed to just watch me. And I put a few extra brads in y'all's bags in case some of the kids, lose the brads because they're like itty bitty. Like I just almost lost mine. Yeah, it seems easier said than done here. Oy. And I always tell the kids, oh, y'all, I forgot my hands. That's just dumb. When you do your brad, I always open it both ways, but I've got to go back. I forgot the hands, which would be just stupid. So, reverse, poop on a stick, which also means you're going to have to use these tacks to poke holes into the hands too. So they're going to do 4 pokes through both hands and through both clocks. And in fact, I may get that first, and then like looking at this, I would tell them to put the hour hand on top of the minute and get a brad through that. Let's see if I can. I don't know what you can see because you're kind of being held up by my chin here. So, hour hand and minute I would put together first, like that. And then I'd go through both clocks. And it may be that they have to do one on the other, although I think it'd be easier if you could do both at the same time because this is really difficult, one at a time. And then shut the brad. And I always model all this. I do all this first on my own before I let them go, and then I go around helping. And it should look like that. That way when you open it, it has the time. Although it's off, but you can turn it. All right, so let me get mine right now. And that's one thing I would tell the students. All right, before we start, we want to make sure that behind the 12 is 0. So if yours is not lined up right, line it up. All right. So now this is how we have our hour hand, we've got our minute hand, short word, short hand, longer word, longer hand. 12 is the beginning, and if you move clockwise, you're moving from 0 or the 12 to the 1 to the 2, blah, 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 blah. All right. That's called clockwise. And what kind of clock is this? It's analog, not digital. All right, so before we continue, I'm trying to think what order I would go in. Let's talk about some vocabulary. If we chop this clock in half, hi-yo! How many parts is it in? 2. Yeah. Half here, half here. So half of a clock. So what I want y'all to do, I'm trying to think if I want to do this. I'm going to color half of my clock a color. I think I want to do this. Y'all, I'm thinking. So it doesn't have to be pretty. But to me, color, I'm not going to color the quarters. And I would be doing this on the overhead as they're doing it. So kind of fair share. And then, like I said, I go around and I'll start helping. But I always do it on mine first. But I would show them that it doesn't need to be, we're not going to make it sloppy, but at the same time, we're not going to spend 30 minutes coloring our clock. And you could even be talking. All right, if we're in half, let's talk while we're coloring. How do you spell half? H-A-L-F, right? Okay, if it were a fraction, what number as a denominator represents halves? 2. Yeah, because when you're chopped in half, you're chopped into 2 parts. This is why we're doing it together, because sometimes, like I said, I'm not always sure of my plan until I actually sit here and do this. But today, or Monday, tomorrow, the main point is knowing that this is an analog clock, which they're never going to be tested on that part. So, I mean, if you're thinking they have to have that memorized, they do not. But I think it's good for them to know. Most importantly, though, they know the vocabulary and that you count by 5 between each digit, 5 minutes. Those are big components. The vocab, which we're about to get into, and that we count by 5s when we're counting minutes. And I'm just giving some final touches. Not sure if you can see. And of course, I'd be, like I said, when I'm done, I'd go around and say, okay, kind of go back and give some touches to your clock. It's a little too messy. Kind of like I'm doing right now. I can't stand messy, but. All right. So, half of a clock. Half is purple, half is white, right? How many minutes is half of a clock? Well, let's count. Let's use our pencils first. And let's count by 5. So it'll look like this. 5, 10. All right, and we're going to do that until we get to 6. So here we go. I want y'all to do it with me. Ready? And I would get up and walk around after I've shown them how to do it. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Hold up your flap. Is that right? Yep, 30 minutes. So on this half is how many minutes? 30. How many minutes are over here? 30. That's right. So I want us to write that somewhere. Let's see. I know. I'm going to write it. Half of my clock is 30 minutes. 30 minutes here, 30 minutes here. So, trying to think. This half has 30. That half has 30. Let's check. Let's start with 12 and go to 6. Let's count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now let's check the white side from the 6 to the 12, counting by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 30 plus 30 is what? 60 minutes. And sure enough, there it is, that's 60 that we had. So I think I'm going to write up here 60 minutes equals 1 hour. 60 minutes is an hour. All right, so now that we've covered that. So this is what I mean by vocabulary. First of all, this is an analog. Let's cover what we've talked about so far, y'all. What type of clock is this? Analog. Y'all say it again. Analog. I'm sorry, Owen is not listening to what I've said. Short word, shorthand. Long word, longhand. Half, you're cut into 2 parts. 1, 2. Half of a clock is how many minutes? Look right here. Half is 30. What's this half? 30. 3 plus 3 is 6. 30 plus 30 makes a full 60 minutes, which is a new hour. That's what we've talked about so far. Now, what do you see these are? Quarters. How many quarters make $1? 4. That's right. 4 quarters make $1. 4 quarters also make time. The difference is, though, the quarters of time are not 25. In money, a quarter is 25 cents. And we ought to look how we're split into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm actually going to extend this a little bit, I think, with my black marker. That'll totally be up to you. So, as you can see, I kind of made mine more distinct. 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters make $1. 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters make a clock. Money's 25 cents. This, let's count 1 quarter. So from 12 to 3, this is 1 quarter. Let's see how many minutes are here. 5, 10, 15. 15 minutes. Let's label that. I want y'all to write 15 in the first quarter. And we're going to lightly shade that in. So in money, how much is a quarter worth? 25 cents. But in time, a quarter is 15. All right, here's another quarter. So there's 1, here's 2. It goes between 3 and 6. Let's count how many minutes are between 3 and 6. 5, 10, 15. So from 3 to 6 is another 15 minutes. So we have another quarter of time. Can y'all say quarter of time? How many minutes is a quarter of time? 15. How do we know that? Well, because when we break a clock into 4 quarters, into fourths as in 4 parts, 4 congruent, same size, same shape, when we go 4 parts, each part of the clock is 15. 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. Let's go from 6 to 9. Here's another quarter. This is 1, 2, now we're 3 quarters. 5, 10, 15. How many minutes do y'all think's right here? 15 is right. 5, 10, 15. So from 9 to 12 is another 15. So let's shade these in.
Oh my God, you're fighting me.
So I'm coloring in my quarters. So, how many quarters make a clock? 4. How many quarters are in $1? 4. And if, you know what, if I had money, I'd probably put $1 with 4 quarters on it. I probably do somewhere. So, this is my whole pie, and I've broken it into 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. What kind of fraction is that when we're talking about 1 part out of 4? If I showed y'all that, 1/4. Yeah, it's a unit fraction, that's right. All right, so now I'm thinking, where would I go from here? So, 2 quarters. 15 plus 15. Do y'all know what 15 plus 15 is? If we don't know, could we add it off to the side like this? Y'all help me. What's 5 plus 5? 10. 1, 2, 3. So 2 quarters is 30 minutes in time. Not in money, right? 2 quarters in money is 50 cents. So this is the vocab that I'm talking about. And so I would label this. I'm trying to think where I want to label it. A quarter of an hour. That's a quarter. And I'm not going to label this one, because if I label this one, that's 2 quarters. This is 1 quarter. So if I told you it is a quarter after 12, A quarter, 1/4 of time is 15 minutes. So a quarter after 12 would be 12:15. Half past 12, half of the clock is 30. If I said it was 3/4 past 12, 1, 2, 3/4, that'd be 15, 15, and 15. Well, we just said 2 of them was 30. So if we add another quarter, that'd be 45. So 3/4 past 12 would be 45 minutes. Now, the hard one is when people say a quarter till. A quarter till means 1/4 until the next hour. So here's the next hour, right? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. This is an hour, right? A quarter till means it's a quarter. It's 15 minutes until we hit the new hour. So when you're at this, which is 45 minutes, 45 minutes is a quarter till in time. So I'm going to write that. Mine says a quarter till next hour. There's no wrong way to do this. All right, so before we do anything else, I want to review, and this is what I would be doing with my own students, what we've talked about. What type of clock is this? Analog. Good. How do you remember which hand is which? Good. Short word, shorthand. Longer word, longhand. If I told you to cut the clock in half, how many pieces would it have? 2, that's right. Hi-ya. And what is half of a clock? 30 minutes. What's this half? 30 minutes. 3 plus 3 is what? 6. So 30 plus 30 would be 60 minutes, which is an hour. Lannon's helping me. Say hi, Lannon. No, look at me.
Hi.
Hello. There's El Gato. All right, half. Now, if I told you to find a quarter of an hour, how many quarters are in a dollar? 4. So how many quarters do you think a clock has? 4. So you cut it in half, and then you cut it in half again, and you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters. In money, a quarter is worth 25 cents, but in time, a quarter is worth 15. Because when you cut it into congruent fourths, same size, same shape, 4 pieces, they're 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. 15 and 15 we said was 30. 15 plus 15 is 30, which makes a whole amount. So I would take time. This is the vocabulary that's important, knowing we count by fives, knowing the hour versus minute, knowing half hour and quarters. All right, so now we're going to do a little bit of play. So I'm going to put a time on my clock. All right, so I want y'all to put y'all's face down, because right now I just want y'all, I can see if y'all can tell me times. So just make up a time for them. So right now, I've got mine. All right, so I'd ask the students, do y'all know which hand we should read first? Hours, that's right. All right, so what hour is it? 2. And minute, it's pointing at the 4, but minutes, it's not 4 minutes. What do minutes count by when we jump digit to digit? 5. So let's try this. What do y'all think it is? Y'all think it's 20? Let's see. 5, 10, 15, 20. And I can even check myself by lifting the flap. And my clock is off, so there we go. 20. All right, I'm going to put another time up here. Okay. Where's y'all's hour hand? It's between 7 and 8, right? So think about this. If you were a hour hand, you hit 7 o'clock, and then you're moving toward 8. So if you're between numbers, you are still after 7. You're not quite 8. So this is 7. If you're on the 6, 6 should be easy because 6 is directly what? Half. And how many minutes are half of a clock? 30. So this is 7:30. Or if you want to sound really smart, you'd say 7:30 because it's half past the 7 o'clock. And do you notice how the hour hand is halfway between 7 and 8? That's because when you're halfway between the hours. All right, I'm going to give you another time. Okay, what hour would y'all say it is? Looks like 11, but it's not 11 yet. It's almost 11 because see this 45? If y'all said it was 11:45, you have to be, or here's what I tell my students. It looks like it's 11, but if the minute hand is in this danger zone, be careful. The hour hand's a liar. It looks like it's 11. It's not. It's still 10. Now, how many minutes is the 9? Well, let's count. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. So it's 10:45. Why does it look like it's 11? Because in 5, 10, 15 minutes, it's going to be 11 o'clock. It looks like it's 11 because in 15 minutes, the time was going to be 11. So anytime the minute hand is in this danger zone, be careful. If I told y'all that I want to see 1:15, where should the hour go?
Wait.
On the 1, okay. 15. How can I figure out which number is 15? What can I count by?
5.
5s, all right. So 5, 10, 15. That's 1. Is that 15?
Yeah.
Now, you want to sound really smart, though. What is this section of a clock right here? This first 15 minutes is known as a quarter. So instead of 1:15, we can say it's a quarter after 1. 1:15. So after y'all do a few times like this, I would then start asking the kids, let's see, I would ask them to find some of their own times. Like, I want y'all to show me 5:30. And then walk around and see if they're doing it right. Well, then I would come back up and model. Okay, well, 5. First, I need to make sure my hour hand's here on 5. 30, we've got it labeled. It's right there, right? Now, what's special? So they're probably going to have it like this, where it's pointing directly at 5, right? However, this is when you really help them get good at a time clock. 30 minutes is how much of an hour?
Half.
It's half. So your hour hand should be halfway to 6. Landon, will you hold the minute hand down? Don't let it move. Thank you. All right. So if y'all had it pointing to 5, that's fine, but technically it would be halfway between these. All right, so good job, y'all. All right, now I want y'all to show me 7:25. Show me 7:25. And then I would walk around. Go ahead.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25.
All right, and this is my second grader, so if he can do this, see what I mean? And he's been listening. Great job. So 7, and did you see how he counted? 25. All right, and then we can even self-check ourselves, can't we? Yep, there's 25. All right, let's do another one. I want y'all to show me a quarter after 3. No, a quarter after 4. So I want a quarter after 4. This one will trick them up a little bit. If they're stuck, I'd say, well, look at the clock and find a quarter. Somewhere we wrote, we want a quarter. So if that's a quarter, that's where your minute hand should be. After 4. So what hour should it be behind?
3, 4.
Yeah. Now, if they struggle with that, it's okay. You walk around and then show them. All right, well, so if it were me and I'm like, okay, I saw some of you doing a good job, some of you are struggling. A quarter of an hour, remember, a quarter is right here. Here's a quarter, singular, 1/4. That's 5, 10, 15 minutes. So if I want a quarter of an hour, I want 15 minutes. After 4 means it's 15 minutes past 4. So it's 4:15. All right, let's try another one. Show me half past 12. Show me half past 12. And I would leave it up like that for the kids while they're working on half past 12. You want to do it? It's past 12, so the hour's got to be past. All right, so put the hour hand behind your 12. And then half of a clock. Okay. So then I'd come up here and go, all right, well, y'all should have known that half of a clock is right here, this 60. 60, the 6. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's half. Past 12 means the hour is going past the 12. And if y'all did it accurately, you're not just pointing at 12, you're halfway, right? All right, let's go back to an easy one. Show me 10:40. I want to see 10:40 on the clock.
Okay.
Wait, baby. It's because it's not you. You did it right. This has moved. All right. So you had it right. He had it right. Did you see what he did, though? How he self-checked himself? That was so smart. My kid's smart. So I saw him doing this. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. 10, 40. And then he was smart. He self-checked. It's just that the clock is moving, which I think it said glue. Now I can see why. It wants you to glue it down and then put the brad through. So see, hint, glue first so it doesn't move. If I had glue, I would do that. All right. Let me try to trick some of you up. I want to see a quarter past 2. I want 1/4 past 2. Well, the hour's got to be past
3.
2. And what's 1/4 of time? Here's 1/4. So a quarter should be 15 minutes. So move that to the 3, Landon, please. The minute hand. There we go. Now we are 1/4, 5, 10, 15 past 2. Now I'm going to give you a harder one. I want to see a quarter till 6. Let's do this one together because this is the first time I've done a quarter till. We wrote that somewhere on our clock. Where does it say a quarter till? Right there. All right, so that's where our minute hand should be. And a quarter till means it's going to be the next hour in 5, 10, 15. It's 15 minutes until the next hour. So a quarter till 6 means it's not 6 yet. It is almost. So it's going to be behind the 5, but it's almost 6. So a quarter, 5, 10, 15 minutes before 6. So this is what I would do tomorrow, is build the clock, discuss the vocab, let them find times. Some easy ones, and then vocabulary ones.